Hey guys, and we're back with another episode of Building With You Live, the show where we sit down with folks from DTC brands and build a branded chatbot with them live. I'm your host Sean, with your co-host Tyler, also the guy who will be building the bots live. Hugh, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So Hugh's the CEO of Top of the Morning Coffee, a brand by Jacksepticeye, a veteran YouTuber pushing 30 million subscribers. He's also had tremendous experience with his other roles, including former CEO at Ugly Drinks, advisor for Ryu, Half Day Tonics, and a million other brands. Hugh, you obviously have an immense amount of experience with DTC brands in the food and beverage space. What's one common indicator that you typically see at these brands that pretty much guarantees their success?
It's a good question, Sean. Thanks for having me as well and the generous introduction. I don't think anything necessarily guarantees success when it comes to consumer, but I think there are some common traits that help. Not in any particular order, but things that come to mind for me is first thing is the founder and that founding team's passion and authenticity with the problem they're trying to solve. I think for me, when there's authenticity there, I think consumers can really feel it, and the storytelling becomes something that customers really engage with. And so I think for any founder starting to have that authentic desire and passion for what they're building is always a common thread. I think too, and now especially nowadays, now we're in more uncertain economic times. I think thinking through the fundamentals of the finances of the business, the unit economics, the margins, the price point you can sell at, how you're going to spread the word cost effectively without relying on fundraising all the time to keep your business going. I think the best brands and D2C businesses think about those things, certainly earlier on, and don't necessarily spread themselves too thin and stay really focused with what they're building. Thirdly, I'd say an obsession around the product that you're selling, to make sure that it delivers on what you're promising, but also what the consumer's looking for. So I think really listening to the consumer, getting feedback, and in the case of food and beverage, making something that's delicious or functionally works versus tells you it's going to makes obviously such a big difference to people coming back and buying again and again. Because obviously we're in the game of repeat purchases ultimately. And I'm sure you guys have both tried something for the first time and not bought it a second time. But also, I'm sure there's things you have in your fridges and cupboards that you have bought again and again and again because the experience is great. So I'd say those three things. I think if you combine that, the a great product with a great team that's passionate and and the right financial, economic, the kind of process, then you can build something really special. And I do see those things as consistent with most of the great brands out there. Obviously, there's a million other things: timing, a bit of luck, right place, right time, obviously. But I think you can go a long way if you really focus on those three things.
So, when you're talking about the finances, how important do you think it is to make a profit off of the front end as compared to maybe something longer term like the lifetime value?
It's a really good question, and I think I think the conversation around it is changing all the time. Um, I mean, ideally, you can get both right, in a perfect world. And I do think it depends on the product and type of business you're selling, and how likely someone is to subscribe for a long time to your product, the type of consumer you're going after, obviously the price point. Um, Something like coffee, which we're selling right now, people obviously drink cups of coffee every day. So for me, it's well set for subscription. It still doesn't mean subscription's easy by any stretch to build a strong subscription business, but I think if you are able to be profitable on first order, it certainly gives you more flexibility with your acquisition, to get creative, maybe test different channels, and you have a bit more breathing room. Um, but obviously, every business is slightly different funding, financial models and different products. But something like coffee, obviously, people drink one or two mugs a day, and it's been a habit of theirs for a long time. So we're not having to educate somebody necessarily on a new habit. So it does make things like subscription a little easier. But the other thing I'd say is global economics are changing all the time. So as we've all seen, I think in most markets around the world, there's been inflationary pressures on commodities, shipping, and then obviously that impacts consumer spending too. So if you've got prices of commodities going up and consumer spending tightening, you really need to be aware of where your flex is. And so the more wiggle room you have on that first order profitability, I think the stronger you are in kind of tough times economically. It's a really great question.
No, that's a really thoughtful response. So moving on to the metrics bit, as a CEO, what would you say are some of your metrics you look at to get a feel of whether the company is headed into the right direction, as well as things that you typically do to ensure that your team is aligned with your vision and values?
Yeah, so there's kind of a combination of a set of metrics. I think there's direct to consumer metrics, which one of the great things about e-commerce is they're very live. So you can see those things almost in the moment, whether that's your daily sales, your orders, your cost per acquisition, how different channels are performing in terms of CPAs, etc. And I'm looking at those things, as is a lot of my team, on like probably for me too often a basis. The midnight on my mobile phone checks. So
Refreshing the business manager.
yeah, refreshing all of those things, right? Triple whale, etc. And we obviously keep a handle on those. And I think with our business having rebranded recently and adding a lot of new features and functions to the website, we're looking at things like conversion rate on the website. We're looking at how many new customers are coming to the site. Obviously, with Sean, Jacksepticeye's traffic, where's that coming from? How are we driving users to the site? So we're not just a D2C company that's running ads. We also have Sean's channels driving traffic to the page. So I'm really interested in that balance right now. Subscription is something I'd say separately. We spend a lot of time looking at all of the data there, as you've referenced there, the LTV, retention. I'm particularly interested at the moment in a lot of qualitative information too, in terms of what's driving the cancellations, if there are any of subscriptions, what's driving those things, and how can we make quick changes to impact that. Same with conversion rate as well, when we're testing different things and A/B testing landing pages. And then obviously there's the wider business metrics, which I'm looking at, obviously. And some of those financial elements come more on a monthly or weekly basis. So obviously the profit and loss, cash flow, balance sheet, making sure we're controlling our inventory sensibly is obviously a really big part of any consumer brand. And so making sure we're balancing those two things is definitely really important. I'd say for a business, for me personally, working with a creator-led brand where you have Sean's huge following and the channels he's working with, certainly forecasting how much product we need to make, what products are consumers buying when they've watched his channel versus when they come through the site in different ways. Making sure means we make sure we have enough of the different products in stock at any moment. So we need to know when he's going to be posting content, what that content's going to be, which products it's going to push, so we make sure we have enough in store, which I think for a traditional D2C brand, you may be in more control of, because you know what you're going to be running ads against on any week. But with Sean's videos, it's exponentially can be much bigger. I think in terms of keeping a team aligned, it's a combination of kind of the wider strategic stuff with showing people the vision, forward planning 12 months ahead, telling people where you're going, and also on a daily basis, checking in, making sure everyone's aligned, have weekly meetings, but also daily as well. Just even 5-minute check-ins can make a massive difference to keeping everybody aligned. Right now, we're a tight team, which is what I've grown to like. A team of ninjas, so to speak, who are making a lot of things happen, even though it probably looks like a lot more people are working on Top of the Morning than there are. We have a lot of external partners too. And I think what we're doing a good job of on Top of the Morning is our external partners and our internal team almost feel part of the same brand, same team. So we have obviously communications channels in house like Slack and things like that, where we are communicating with external partners almost in real time alongside the brand. So keeping our partners up to date with what's happening with the company, internally keeping up to date, and then obviously working with Sean to make sure he knows what's happening too. And him and I are talking on a daily basis as well. So I think we are 5 weeks in since we relaunched the brand. And so it's been a lot of conversation, and now I think we're going into the phase of, okay, first month objectives achieved, like let's push this forwards now. So definitely looking to the future a lot more than maybe in the first 1 or 2 weeks after you launch a brand, where you're head down trying to work out what's coming the next day. So I think as we move forwards, there will be a lot more forward planning. We're trying to get 6 to 9 months ahead at the moment of where we are today.
Right. So, given how much Top of the Morning bounces off of Sean, how much of the sales would you say come from an audience that's already familiar with him versus something like a cold audience?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think long term, what we're trying to do with the brand, which looks like this, if people aren't aware, is what you won't see on the, obviously with this packaging, with the branding. I have the cap on as well today, but with the branding, you'll see that this is Sean's vision for the brand that we delivered with the branding partners and the branding agency. But what you won't see is Sean on the bag, and it's not called Jacksepticeye coffee. So we've built something that we believe, and Sean's vision was to make kind of specialty coffee more approachable and accessible to anybody that finds it intimidating. Certainly a younger audience too. So obviously when you first launched the brand, and when Sean posts about this for the first time to his followers, obviously a large volume of the traffic, but also our early followers are familiar with Jacksepticeye and fans of Jacksepticeye, and they will continue to be. And the balance for us is making sure we have a brand that Jacksepticeye fans love, because it is Sean's vision, but also that if you walk into a store or see an ad online or spot one of our, or even if you're listening to this today, you still know that you are going to get a beautiful piece of packaging. It's uplifting. There's a really cool story. We donate money to Crisis Text Line from every bag sold. It's all about kind of being positive every morning, that bright sunshine, and it's great tasting coffee and obviously the other products we have as well. So I think for us, like talking strategically, that's where the growth opportunity is in the brand, is continuing to grow with the Jacksepticeye audience. But long term, we obviously want to be, to get the brand in hands of new audiences. So I'd say right now is obviously first, we're like 5 weeks into relaunching the brand. I'd say the majority of our focus has been on engaging with the current audience that we've built over time, and the majority of those are Jacksepticeye fans. But over time, we'll be expanding to talking about the product's qualities and the qualities of the brand that we've built, which should stand alone as well.
Got it. Got it. So you mentioned that your team is rather small right now. So I think that this question would be fitting. There's been a little bit of mixed discussion on whether a company should hire only A-star players because B players would quote unquote pull them down, or if B players are actually fine because sometimes you just need bodies filling roles. What's your personal take on that?
It's a good question. I think the A versus B thing is a harder way to look at it. I generally want great people in any company. What I would say with consumer products brands is that you do need a blend of different skill sets, and you need a blend of different personalities to make a team work. I'd certainly say you need a blend of EQ and like emotional connection when you're building a brand, or if you're replying to 1,000 tweets on Twitter, it's a very different emotional skill set and maybe IQ skill set to building a financial model. So you need a blend of personalities and skill sets to build a consumer brand, because there are so many facets to it, whether it's operationally making sure the bags and the coffee is roasted on time, or coming up with creative concepts on how to build the brand externally. They require different personalities, different energies, And it's about blending that together. And I think what's important is making sure that the values are consistent. And so, in terms of your A and B player analogy, I think if you are going to have people in your organization, they need to share the same values. And sometimes people have potential, and it's your responsibility as a manager to train them, to coach them, and to make sure that they're in the role where they can become an A-team player. So sometimes in my career, I've seen an employee who has the right cultural values for the organization they're in, lots of potential, but maybe they've just been put the square peg in the round hole in terms of the role they're doing in the organization. And if you switch what they're doing and change their role, they find something that clicks. You've then turned somebody who might be described as a B player into an A player in your organization. But what I would say is that if you have an A or a B player who doesn't fit the values, then it's best to part ways. So you can have the best performing employee. If they don't fit the values and they're disrupting the culture in your organization, then it's not worth it. So for me, any team that I'm leading or building, it's about having the right personalities in that gel, that are positive, that lift each other up. And then obviously it's my responsibility to make sure everyone is moving in the right direction. I think right now at top of the morning, whether externally or internally, certainly I think Sean sets the example as being such a great person, and he has such good emotional intelligence. Obviously, if you're building a team around someone like that, it becomes natural. And I think the people who want to work on this brand and understand it all share that same value and understand where Sean's trying to take it, which means I think right now we have a really clear set of values internally, even though maybe not codified as well as they could be in future. But I think it's a really positive group of people, which reflects the positivity of the brand we're trying to build. I don't know if that's a helpful answer, but values first for me. Whether you're an A player or a B player, I think if you can really have people disrupt the culture of your organization if they don't fit the values. And however good they are, I don't think that's worth keeping in your organization.
No, that's immensely helpful. So moving on to our second to last question, I see that we're putting you under a tremendous amount of stress right now. But as a CEO, when you go through these stress periods and you're thrust into difficult situations daily, how do you personally handle that stress and say, not let it influence your time with friends and family? Maybe you went through a rough day. I don't know, maybe supply chains had issues, and then you were slated to go out for a celebration with family after. How do you personally distance those two emotions?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question, and I'd say it's a constant process. I don't think you ever get to a place where you've got balance necessarily, and I think part of being a CEO and a founder is getting used to those ups and downs. And I think for me, I've been doing this as in my own way, being a leader or a CEO for almost 10 years now at this point. And I've gone through the times where, as you referenced there, Sean, I've taken work home with me or taken it out with me to the celebration that you referenced. I've had those sleepless nights. I've not looked after myself properly and let the stress play out in different ways. But I think it sounds like such a cliche, but I think leaders and CEOs need to treat themselves almost like athletes, and they need to take care of themselves. And I think if you look at the best tennis players, the best golfers, the best athletes, they have coaches, they have diet plans, they work out, they sleep properly, they hydrate. I think for me, taking all of those things a lot more seriously has made a massive difference on how I deal with stress. And a great example is sleep. There are times in my career where I've said, oh, I'll sleep at the weekend, or maybe I'll sleep in a month's time, And I think the difference I have between a bad night's sleep and a good night's sleep in terms of how prepared I am and how resilient I am to deal with the challenges that are coming the next day. And you listed some challenges that could come at any moment, right? Certainly makes a huge difference. And for me, when, there's so many things outside of our control as leaders and even employees right now, whether it's, coronavirus, who saw that coming, right? Huge massively globally disruptive event, almost changed our lives overnight, affected every company on the planet almost. Um, and I think as a leader, like the only way to be prepared to react to that is to prepare yourself best. So for me, I now put those things as non-negotiables. So, I don't drink alcohol during the week, rarely at the weekends. I prioritize sleep. I try and prioritize working out every day. I eat a lot healthier than I used to. And this has come from someone who used to do all the opposite of these things, right? So I've been there and seen it. And I think for me, that's allowed me to put myself in a much more resilient position to deal with it. And the other thing I try to do is just like let go a little bit in a spiritual way, and try not to attach myself to the problems. I think with previous brands and businesses that I've run, I've almost become the high and the low. So like I almost feel it. If things are going well, that's me. If things are going badly, that's me. Or overthinking all of these ideas, or the success of, the success of an ad, that's down to me. But in reality, so many things outside of your control. I think what I've felt recently is the more I let go and the more I trust either the world or the people I'm working with, things get better. And so for me, I think that's kind of how I'm approaching it now. I still don't get it right. I mean, I have a Whoop band on and they just launched the stress functionality. So you can see your stress on an hourly rate. I don't know what mine is now. My phone's not here, but there are definitely some days where it's could be better. But I think being aware when you are stressed, certainly things I've done in the past where I've sent an email when I'm stressed that I wish I hadn't. If you can recognize that you're stressed and put the email down, put the phone down, put the laptop down, back a step away, I think, and then do something else. I think quite often you come back and you read what you'd written and said, I'm really glad I didn't hit the send button on that. And obviously the ripple effect's big. If you send an email to a junior team member, a client, a customer, an investor, it's very hard to take those words back. And so I think more and more I'm trying to just be mindful and conscious of those feelings.
No, that's so, so helpful. And oh my goodness, I'm sure this is going to be turned into a short. But so many entrepreneurs base their self-worth on the business. And it was like the fact that you said it resonated so much more, that you're like more than the business, you're more than the ad, you're more than the...
Yeah, we're all generally trying our best, right? And there's a lot of luck, and you can create your own luck, right, by being in the right place at the right time. But there is a lot of luck involved in startups. I'm very aware that I'm lucky to be, a white male who grew up in the UK, with like great family, good education. So like that affects my luck and my chance of success with anything I do, right? And I'm aware of that. And so, to judge yourself by others and to judge yourself by other success is like, it's comparison's the thief of joy. So I think just focusing on yourself and making sure you're healthy, looking after yourself, trying to look over the shoulder what everyone else is doing, definitely the best way to be. And I still struggle with that because you'll see another startup launch, another company do this, somebody else do this. But in reality, like, comparing yourself to others, you don't know anyone's situations and what's going on. It's best just to try and focus on yourself.
No, that's so good. Our final question before we transition into the bot building. Do you personally see Top of the Morning as a market leader in the next 5 years? What would you say are your short-term goals, maybe in 1 to 2 years, and versus the long-term, maybe like 5 to 10?
No, that's a great question. I think there's a huge opportunity for what we're trying to build here at Top of the Morning. The way I see coffee globally, and certainly in the US and other kind of markets that we sell in, is that you've had kind of 3 waves of coffee have happened already. You had the first wave of coffee where people discovered it for the first time, and in the Second World War, you had a lot of instant coffee being drunk by soldiers, and which started being sold in mainstream retailers. You then had the second wave of coffee, which was when There was the guys behind Starbucks went to Italy, found the Americano and espresso, and then took that to America and started coffee shops like Starbucks, which are obviously massive today. Then you had the third wave of coffee, which was people going and trying to find the best coffee and specialty coffee around the world, and almost having coffee competitions and building many of the amazing independent coffee shops that are around the world now with super high quality coffee. Where we see Top of the Morning as part of this fourth wave, which is trying to take that super high quality coffee and making it feel accessible to an audience that hasn't tried it yet. It's almost like elevating the experience and showing people that this delicious specialty coffee experience that you thought was confined to hipster coffee shops is actually accessible to everyone. And so with Sean's passion for coffee and Sean's vision for Top of the Morning, he's able to speak to an audience who might be discovering coffee for the first time, who might be intimidated maybe by some of the language around coffee that's out there currently. And I think what we've tried to do is kind of almost make it approachable, make it seem fun. When you get the box at Top of the Morning, it says, "You're the barista now." And I think that means we think there's a huge amount of potential in, consumers discovering coffee, making coffee at home for the first time, maybe during the pandemic, discovering different ways of making coffee, but just making it fun. And so I think that's what we're really excited about. And so, coffee's, I think, the second most drunk beverage in the world after water. Might be wrong on that, but it's definitely up there. So I think anywhere in the world where there's, a growing coffee market and people discovering third wave coffee, there's an opportunity for brands like Top of the Morning to make it just feel more friendly. So I think that's what we're really excited about. And right now we're online only and ship globally, roasting in America. But for us, I think there's certainly more channels we can sell in. Certainly retail stores in the coming years will be a big part of our focus. But then also new roasts, new flavors, new formats, new products. We obviously have hot chocolate, we have tea, new merch concepts like the cap that I'm wearing, just to bring the brand to life. And so we're just getting started, really, and really excited about the pipeline of products we have, certainly over the next 12 months. Who knows what we'll have in 5 years? But yeah, hopefully just more people know the brand and feel happy to have the bright yellow bag of sunshine sat on their kitchen counter.
No, that's an awesome description. So we're going to go into the bot building part of the segment, and we've actually designed a mini Instagram funnel for Top of the Morning. So we realized that you guys did a mini giveaway contest where they had to guess the square that Sunny was in to win like 2 bags of sweet beans. So we actually put our own spin on that, and Tyler's going to go ahead and share his screen now to walk you through what the process is going to look like.
Yeah, so just for reference for the audience here, this is basically the post you guys had, and essentially you guys kind of have this grid, almost like a chessboard, but just vertically a little bit longer. And you're trying to find Sunny, which is on E22. So just for reference, and then you got kind of the rules inside your Instagram post here, and then you got a bunch of comments from people. And what we decided to do was make it so the same type of post, obviously when you can make a new one, but the same kind of genre of post where you're trying to find a certain thing, and the keyword trigger that they would type in order to start or participate in said giveaway contest would be TOTM. Again, you can change this to whatever you want it to be. And this is kind of the first message you'd get. And then it checks to see whether they're following the business or not. Like if they want to sign up, it checks to see, are they following the Instagram account? If false, they get this message saying, hey, you're not following us. When you do, click this button below. And when they do follow you, it then goes into this true path, which then says, where's Sunny hiding? And again, we discussed that it was E22. And this question gets saved into a custom field. And if they answer E22, then they would get the correct answer. If not, then they'll get the wrong answer, where then they have to try again. And then once They get the correct answer. It then checks to see is the giveaway still live, just to make sure that things are good. And then if it has their first name and last name, it kind of goes through this check here. Then it captures their email, and then it signs them up. And that is the first kind of step, okay? It does a bunch of logic here in the back end. I know I jumped over a lot of this stuff here, but a lot of it is just kind of just logic jargon here. Like signing them up for email onto ManyChat, list management, which just sends a custom field to their account, and then checking to see if the giveaway is live again, and then seeing if they've already participated from prior endeavors. So if they already have a giveaway contest ticket.
So for a high level overview, it can be the same exact post, except like the giveaway is going to be a year's worth of coffee. And instead of DMing the keyword that Tyler mentioned, another way to trigger this flow could be asking them to comment answer. And the reason why we wanted to do that is because we didn't want to spoil the surprise. We didn't want to let everyone see the correct answer. And the only place where the correct answer is going to be is all going to be within the Instagram DM. So what Tyler has shown you is the backend, and then he's going to show you the even more backend. That's slightly more complicated, but it is also another idea that we came up with. So Tyler, if you just go into the main menu.
So Sean, you would
what happens here?
You would put the competition on Instagram stories and there would be a link, or you'd go to the DM.
That's correct. So
there are many ways that they can enter into the flow.
Yeah.
We would put it on the Instagram stories, we could put it on Reels, but the main way they are going to be entering is either through a DM or through a comment on an Instagram post.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
So the comment is pretty straightforward. You can just add a little trigger here, and you can make it an Instagram comment or an Instagram story or a Instagram live comment.
Got it.
We just made it for keyword for simplicity's sake.
Got it. On a specific post, so if it was just that post, would know, because lots of people DM the brand, I guess. It would know who's who.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can easily do that with this comment one. You can restrict it to certain keywords, or you can just tell them like, hey, comment under below if you want to participate in this giveaway. Right? Something along those lines, and then it would kind of start this flow, and then they would go through the series of questions that we kind of went through already. And when they do sign up, they get assigned a certain amount of points for signing up, 25 points to be specific. And then they can earn more points. And the more points they accumulate, the greater their chances are of winning the grand prize. So Sean wanted me to go over the main menu, and this is what it looks like. So there are a couple different ways they can earn points. One of them is following you on other social media accounts. The other one is playing a whack-a-mole game. I guess Sean will go into that a little bit later. The other one is buying one of your products. So if they buy one of the products, they'll earn a certain amount of points based on the dollar amount that they purchased. And then there's the last one here, which is tagging you guys on one of their stories.
Right. So the reason why we had the points for the products is we are basing this off of inspiration of a print-on-demand brand. So these guys actually raffle away monster trucks, and those are like 700,000 to about $1 million in cost. And to get into that raffle, of course, you can sign up via email, but you can stand to gain more points with purchasing their print-on-demand products. And every one of these contests that they run, they actually generate a couple $1 million in revenue. And that's essentially the whole concept that we're basing this off of. That's why it's not just 2 bags of coffee, it's a year's worth of coffee. And people would want to play to stack the deck as much in their favor as possible. That's what we're going for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I could go into the back end logic of this, but essentially the way it works is if they wanted to purchase, they'd get this kind of purchase instructions flow. And then Sean kind of set this up so it has all the links here. And then once they get that, then they can purchase it on your kind of Shopify store or whatever kind of platform you're using. And then it'll go through this kind of make.com logic here. So it tracks to see purchases coming through. I don't have an actual Shopify connected here, but just kind of assume that there is a Shopify connected. Then it'll find the user. So it'll find the user using that email that they've signed up with for the giveaway on the flow prior. And then it'll tag them, and then it'll set a custom field. Now, the tagging process is very important because what happens when they get tagged, let me just try to go back here. When they get tagged, they will trigger this flow right here. So this flow gets triggered once a tag is applied. I mean, it's disabled for now, but like obviously it would be enabled in this if this was live. And then it gives them points based on how much money they spent with you guys. So I times it by 5. So they get every time they spend $1, they get 5 points more. So if they spend $20, then they're going to get 100 points. And then you just kind of do some calculations. This is all logic stuff, and it pastes it into the spreadsheet here. So all the information that the user kind of gathers throughout the time of their giveaway contest, it all gets pasted in here. Okay. So that's it for the purchases. So that, again, this is all kind of a lot of logic here. So if you don't follow 100%, it just know that when everything is connected, it'll be able to track their purchases that they make with you, and then it'll assign them the points based on those purchases. And the whack-a-mole, I think we'll go over this just briefly here. Basically, every day they would get 3 tries. And the way we have it set up is that the amount of times they win is randomized. And it's a 60% times they'll win, 30% times it'll be a near miss, and then 10% of the time it'll be just a miss.
So to chime in
Sean
here,
kind of has the
reason why we have a 30% chance of a near miss is because we studied the gamblers in Las Vegas, and there's studies saying that gamblers actually see near misses as wins. And our goal here is to sort of micro hook these users to see themselves winning and winning and winning and winning. We even have a multiplier system where if they win 3 times in a row, they're going to get extra points. So it's just to make it as fun and engaging as possible to have them play through it on a daily basis. This is extremely effective if you want to launch a product because they're essentially going to micro commit every single day. And with each micro commitment, they're going to be more and more likely to purchase the product when the product launches. So that's essentially the whole concept behind this whack-a-mole.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the following on social media is fairly straightforward. There are no actual API calls for this, meaning you can't track to see whether or not they did it. You can just get them to click a button. They click it, they'll jump onto the social media account, they'll follow you, and then they'll say that they did. So you are kind of going off their trust, just because there are no API calls to make sure that you verify that they did do it. And then the mentioning on story is pretty straightforward. When they get the message instructions and when they do mention you, it triggers this flow. And if they've joined the giveaway contest, then essentially it'll update the Google spreadsheet, and then it'll give them this message saying they've earned their 250 points. So the copy seems to be wrong here. So I'll just switch that up really quick because I know that it was supposed to be 250. So we caught that live.
Right. So this is basically a summary of the entire funnel that we built for Top of the Morning. Now I'm really curious, Hugh, what do you personally think?
I think this is great. Yeah, I mean, like, you guys are way smarter than I am, so there's no way I could ever build this myself without making a mistake. It's great. It's a really great way of taking something we tested. And what you showed, Sean, was an idea we had that we wanted to see if people like this idea of, I don't know, like swiping through on Instagram, gamifying it. We may do something similar again. We may not, to see how people reacted. But I think you're right. When you're replying in the comments here, it's quite a one-dimensional application process. And you can see the answers that other people are giving. Whereas I feel like with what you guys are talking about, it's adding not even a third dimension, kind of a fourth dimension of like interaction behind that. So it's, I mean, I can see that what you've designed being hugely valuable, not just for Top of the Morning, but lots of different brands in terms of maybe we're not going to run this exact competition again, but the idea behind the mechanic, you could tweak this, right? You can take bits out, you could simplify it a little bit. if you wanted to test it, but you also learning a lot more about the customer as well, capturing maybe some information about them, or gamifying it, which obviously we have a lot of gamers, followers, or like that sort of thing. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential.
So speaking about having more information on the follower, we also set up something called a footer flow. And essentially, I'm sure you already know this, but some of e-com stores are running hotjar pop-ups before the customer bounces that asks the customer like, hey, is there anything that we could have done today to make your experience better? Or if there's anything that, and I see that Tyler just might have got cut off with his internet.
I had enough of it.
But anyways, there is a footer flow that we have set up, and essentially after 3 hours, it triggers, and we ask them like, hey, what is your personal experience going through this? And I actually can share my screen here to just run you through quickly. And let's see if I can put it up right here. So after 3 hours, let me know if you see my ManyChat screen.
Yeah.
Okay. After 3 hours, we get Sunny to come in again. We ask what their thoughts on the experience is. It's great. Okay, I hated it. Because you never know. Sometimes the demographic just hates interacting on Instagram DM, which I strongly doubt this is the case for Top of the Morning. And then we give them an option to type as well. So this footer flow is essentially our way of iterating, bringing feedback back to the team, such that we are able to know like, hey, this is what our audience is saying. Maybe they want a bundle. Maybe they don't like the experience. Maybe they think that Sunny could be a little bit more upbeat. That's basically our goal. And to sum everything up, there's a couple more funnels that we could actually implement. The first is the low-hanging fruit, a FAQ flow where customers can get their queries answered, maybe DM help, and there's like 7 different frequently asked questions that come out. The second is a quiz funnel product recommender, because I know there are a huge variety of coffee and people might not know what coffee to pick. This quiz funnel can be useful for cold acquisition, for people to get their foot into the door, or it could also be useful for retargeting when people leave the cart in product and they bounce. We can retarget them, have the quiz, reassure them like, hey, this is going to be the product for you, and get them to purchase. And finally, we can have it run as abandoned cart sequences, meaning if they abandon the cart, they're going to receive a message in Messenger. And that more or less sums up our podcast. Hugh, is there anything at all that you would like to plug?
Like to plug? Oh, Top of the Morning Coffee, of course. No, yeah, Top
Of course.
The Morning Coffee. Find us at
And
Top
Tyler's
of the Morning
back.
Coffee. No, but what I would say is...
Hey, sorry about that.
Hey, Tyler. Welcome back. I was just plugging Top of the Morning Coffee. The most delicious coffee beans you can find on planet Earth. Appreciate you guys running me through that. It's got my brain working. There's probably lots of different executions for a coffee company like ours that could be... I mean, there's so much depth to it, right? Sunny, FAQs, flavor quizzes, competitions. I mean, I'm sure you guys have many more ideas than you've shown there as well. So yeah, thank you for showing me that. I mean, and thanks for asking such challenging questions, Sean. I know I'm going to have go and have a lie down in a dark room to deal with the stress of the fourth question. No, I'm joking. But yeah, no, I'm really glad we found time with the 3 time zones around the world as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it from us, guys.